Am I the a-hole for kicking my stepdaughter out of my house after she sabotaged her father's party? My stepdaughter is 19 and absolutely hates me. I have been with her dad for 8 years and met him a year after he divorced her mother, but her and her mom both blame me for the divorce. They divorced because she cheated with his brother. I have made multiple efforts to bond with her, and she has nothing but bad things to say whenever I do. Like in your dreams, go F yourself. You'll never be my mom, so stop trying, etc. Despite this, I still try, and it's absolutely exhausting. Her father has spoken to her multiple times, but she truly doesn't care. On Wednesday, I was throwing my husband a surprise birthday party. I invited my sister-in-law, mother-in-law, and stepdaughter. My sister-in-law is hands down my best friend, while my mother-in-law and I are civil, usually. My sister-in-law called it and said something bad was going to happen, that she had a feeling, but I ignored it. I baked the cake and got him like 4 gifts, one of which was an expensive watch he had his eye on for months. My sister-in-law even came with me to buy it. Long story short, when I was out on the back deck grilling and my stepdaughter was the only one inside, and the cake ended up being accidentally knocked off the counter and the watch was gone. I asked her where it was, and she said the only watch she knew about was the one her mom bought for him, but she wouldn't let me see it. Husband walks in halfway through the argument and she hands him the watch I bought and said, "Mom knew you liked watches, so she got this for you." My sister-in-law was the first to speak up, saying that I had bought that watch and had my back 110%. My stepdaughter then goes in complete hysterics, saying that once again I was trying to bash her mother and take credit, when all her mom wanted was to do something nice for the love of her life. I immediately told her to get out, and then showed my husband the receipts. She refuses to leave and says she won't be told she can't be in her dad's home. I've owned this house for 21 years. My husband has my back, and tells her to get out and not come back, and says he is done with her lying and trying to play matchmaker. My mother-in-law, who saw the whole thing, then starts berating me and blaming me for alienating her grandchild, and says I'm the reason they don't have a relationship. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. When all her mom wanted was to do something nice for the love of her life. What on earth are your stepdaughter and her mom on? Your stepdaughter is more than old enough to learn some manners and treat you in a civil way. She doesn't have to like you, but should show basic respect. I'm assuming she can go to her mom's house after being kicked out, rightfully so. So it's not like she's out on the street. If your mother-in-law really cared about her relationship with your stepdaughter, she would make her own effort and call her out for her attitude towards you. Thank God for your sister-in-law and husband supporting you. Stepdaughter wouldn't be allowed in my house anymore. She can live with her mom, and her dad can bring her out to go places, but she's not allowed back at the house ever. And going forward, I would never attempt to speak to her again, and consider a restraining order on her mom. Not today, Hall. Your stepdaughter is a raging lunatic. Her mother cheated on her father, but you're to blame for the divorce? How does that work in her twisted mind? Raising a little monster that will cheat to get what she wants. For what it's worth, my mom left my dad because he was completely absent in our lives. He worked and came home, and that was it. No extracurriculars, no family trips. He would just stay home. Nothing outside of more or less existing in the house. When she filed for divorce, my dad started, being a dad. My brother ate it up, latched onto him, blamed my mom for everything, moved out of the house to be with my dad. Sometimes people make weird choices during a divorce. Has anyone ever just flat out said, ask your mom about her sleeping with your uncle? She knows about it, but says that if I didn't start dating him, her parents could have worked it out. That's insane. I get wanting your parents to be together, but it's been a decade and she's 19 now. There's something seriously imbalanced about her to think she could pass that watch off as a gift from her mom. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for how I punished my stepdaughter for flushing her sister's spices down the toilet? I, male 42, married my current wife when my daughter, 16, was 4 and my stepdaughter, 14, was 2. They grew up as if they were blood siblings with occasional disagreements and jealousy issues, mostly from my stepdaughter. 2 days ago was my daughter's dog's 3rd death anniversary. Usually, at that time, she'd rather be alone to write poems or look at pictures of her beloved dog. This year, she asked me to go with her to visit his grave, which is located in her grandparents' farm. And though my wife appreciates my daughter's need to have time alone, my stepdaughter wanted to come with us, though she wasn't close to the dog. My daughter refused to let her come and only wanted me to go. My stepdaughter then threw a fit and insisted on coming. I sat her down to explain her sister's need for space that day, and she stopped after that. We left, but 15 minutes later, my wife texted me that my stepdaughter had a breakdown and didn't stop crying, then flushed all her sister's spices that were in separate containers down the toilet. They were a gift from my daughter's Asian friend's mom, since my daughter is into Asian food and cooks meals every week. I was stunned. I called my wife, but got no response. My daughter asked what's wrong, but I just dropped her off at her grandparents' farm, then went back home. My stepdaughter refused to come out of her room, yelling that my daughter deserved it for excluding her like that. I was pissed. I told her I'd punish her for wasting spices that were important to her sister that she shouldn't even touched, by taking from her savings to pay for the damages. But my wife thought I should only take away privileges and not money my stepdaughter saved. She said she's still a kid, and she won't let me touch her saving but will pay herself. But if my wife paid, then my stepdaughter will think her behavior is okay. Then she said my daughter's to blame too for not letting her stepsister come with her. She acted as if she never goes to the farm, though I take them there twice a month. I argued that this was, in my opinion, the right punishment to get this resolved. But my wife said I was only making my stepdaughter resent me because she wants the money for a new bicycle. We kept disagreeing on this, and all I was thinking of was my daughter's reaction when I told her. She was devastated, but I assured her I was taking steps to help her replace all the spices she lost. My wife called me cruel. Am I the a-hole? The consequence he came up with is absolutely fair. Since when do consequences need to be adapted and tailored to the kid's preferences? You also shouldn't be afraid to insist on a consequence just because she's your stepdaughter. You've raised her most of her life. Moreover, what she did was wrong. So she wanted to save up for a new bicycle. Well, her sister wanted to save those spices for cooking a meal. She owes her sister monetary compensation. The whole point is to show her that it's not worth doing something like this again. If your stepdaughter is sad/upset about this consequence, that means it's working. Not a hole. Oh my goodness, yes. My son is 8 and is having a hard time accepting consequences for his actions. Yesterday he missed a portion of the visit with my in-laws at his stepbrothers, as his punishment was to stay in his room. The visit was in the front yard. Because of his age, he gets the opportunity to have a redo when he understands his actions. It is frustrating to enforce a lot of the time, but I am doing it now to help make him a more compassionate person later. Thank you for your hard work making a good future adult. It is not easy, but damn, it is appreciated by the rest of us. Your wife doesn't want your stepdaughter to replace something that she stole? Suddenly, her tantrums at 14 years old aren't so surprising. Not a hole. This. Opie has a wife problem. The wife offering to pay instead of the 14-year-old is ridiculous. It explains why the 14-year-old is so bratty. Opie, protect your daughter and get the entire family into therapy, or things will only get worse since your wife enables her daughter's bad behavior. Not a hole. She had a tantrum, acted entitled, and destroyed someone else's property. She knew exactly what she was doing, and did so maliciously. Now she's responsible for paying for it. Not a hole. It's pretty much the punishment fits the crime. Now stepdaughter will have to wait on getting a bike until later, and she'll hopefully learn that actions have consequences. Better to learn that now as a young teen versus later. Not a hole. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister nobody surprised her stepson chose not to visit anymore? My sister and her husband started out online dating. When they decided to get serious 9 years ago, he moved across the country to be with her, leaving behind his then 7-year-old son. He and his ex were already apart at that point, but from what I've learned, they had shared custody up until then. His son was not happy that his dad moved so far, and when the first summer of long-distance parenting came, he clearly didn't want to be there, and showed no excitement or interest in getting to know my sister. My sister was all surprised Pikachu face at the time, and couldn't believe he was so dismissive of her when they met. Over the last 9 years, they have gotten married and had 2 children together. Now my sister's stepson has decided he no longer cares about maintaining contact with his dad or half-siblings, and told them in April he would not be flying out this summer. Last year didn't happen due to COVID, so they were hoping he would come. But he told his dad he didn't appreciate being left for some woman, and especially didn't like the way his dad started a new family after moving so far away from him. Meaning he had to travel across the whole country every single time he saw his dad. And how he was done. That his dad could keep his new family, he was good with his mom and family back there. My sister was stunned, and she cannot believe he feels the way he does. She asked me if we could talk about it last week, and she asked me if I could believe he would do this. I said I could easily believe it. That nobody was shocked by his actions because it was clear he was hurt, and felt like his dad abandoned him for my sister. He never appeared to any of us to care much for his half-siblings, and he definitely doesn't give a crap about my sister. It was also clear he was angry with his dad, but my sister's husband expected him to adapt and adjust, and probably thought he'd get over it with time. Well, he didn't. My sister was pissed that I said no, but he was surprised. She said I was dismissive and cruel with my words, that saying that 21 is as good as I told you so. She told me none of us should have expected this, and if we did, we're all huge a-holes. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. I mean, truth sucks to hear, but the dude literally just up and left his kid. I'd expect him to take time and effort out of his life every year to visit them. Of course, the kid is going to grow bitter and resentful towards his father, and the people he was abandoned for in his eyes. I never understood people who would just find someone thousands of miles from where they live, and just expect the kids to adapt and accept things without having the right to express what they're feeling. In certain cases, the moves are necessary. Both my divorced parents were military, but they made an effort to ensure they were both a regular part of my life, even living across the country, and I visited all summer and on major holidays. I'm betting that Opie's brother-in-law puts very little effort into making sure he stayed a part of his son's life despite distance. Not the a-hole. Did she ever acknowledge it had to be hard on the stepson to go through what he did? Or that the dad should have flown back sometimes to see his son? It seems so one-sided, and I don't see any acknowledgement of care for stepson's feelings on the part of your sister. The truth hurts. It's incredibly disruptive to the child to have spent entire summers so far away from all his school friends. It had to suck listening all the kids tell their stories about summer camps and Little League the first day back from school. Truth hurts, yo. Not the a-hole. And given how he don't mention them ever visiting the son, meaning the burden was always on him. What else did they expect? At the very least, they could have done vacations over in his area and do fun stuff with him, if they want to make him feel like he still mattered. Yeah, it seems common on the sub that the kids are the ones putting the effort in. Usually a good indication who the a-hole is going to be. Not the a-hole. Opie was right. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for calling my father a worthless sperm donor, and then refusing to come to his son's funeral? My 17 female father, let's call him Carl, left my mom and I when I was 6. I didn't even know my parents had issues, and apparently neither did my mom, so it was a total surprise when I woke up that morning to my mom in hysterics because he was missing. We searched everywhere, contacted everyone we knew, and still it took, well, over a year before we even found him. Even then, it was just so my mom could get a proper divorce. No contact since then. My mom was the best, but she was killed in an accident when I was 10. I was in the car with her and in a hospital for a while afterwards. The authorities went looking for my dad, but when they couldn't find him, custody of me went to my mom's foster/adoptive parents. About a month ago, my grandparents were contacted by Carl, who claimed he wanted to see me. Or rather, he wanted me to meet his son, 11, who was apparently sick. Have I mentioned that Carl got himself a new family the same year he ditched us? Kid wasn't even his, but apparently meant more to him than I ever did. Anyway, it seemed like the kid wanted to meet me. My grandparents made it clear it would be my choice, and I said no, vehemently. Then days ago, Carl showed up at my house screaming that I was an awful child/sister because I refused to grant his son's dying wish, and now the kid is already passed. I felt sympathetic towards him, but there was no way I was gonna let him blame me for it. So this may be where I'm the a-hole. I told Carl he had no right to my time because he was nothing more than a worthless sperm donor who didn't even show up when my mom died. But then I told him that under no circumstance can he force me to attend his son's funeral because I didn't know him, nor did I ever want to. My grandparents are on my side, but they did mention that I could have been just a bit nicer because his kid just died. But frankly, Carl was an A. It is not like I said he deserved what happened for being a crappy dad. So, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Screw Carl, and what happened to the kid isn't your problem. I'll take downvotes, but it's the truth. Opie never knew the kid and had no relationship. Your grandparents are good people, and you were probably the world to your mother. Hold your head up high and remember the good times. Not the a-hole. No downvotes for me. Carl sucks as a father and as a human being. $5 says he was after a kidney, liver, or bone marrow to save the other son, and that's the only reason he got in touch at all. Not an a-hole. That's kinda how I assumed it was going to end up being about, and while it wasn't confirmed one way or the other, that's just because Opie didn't take the bait. Maybe the kid genuinely wants to make a connection with some rumored sister, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was just about finding out whether she's a potential medical match. Not an a-hole. Though I think that he claims that his stepson wants to meet because he figures that will be a better guilt trip to inflict on you than Say does, because there's no reason why the kid should want to see you. Not an a-hole. Also, I'm guessing he never paid child support as he went AWOL. Might be worth getting his contact details so he can be made to back pay that. Not an a-hole. He had it coming. Glad you got a chance to get it off your chest. Am I the a-hole for telling my stepdaughter to leave the house after she called me a homewrecker? My stepdaughter and I don't have a good relationship. I have been in her life since she was 9. Her father and I started dating 3 months after he filed for divorce. We were colleagues for a short while about a year before their divorce, but we didn't have any relationship back then. I left the firm just 6 months after we started working together. I didn't even think about him once till we reconnected at a party hosted by one of our colleagues. His ex-wife thinks that we had an affair with me. There's nothing we can do to convince her otherwise. She told her daughter about her suspicions when she was around 13. We had a great relationship till then, and I tried to tell her that her dad didn't cheat. She doesn't believe us. It is just our words against her mother, and the timeline does look a bit suspicious. She withdraws from me, and she has always been distant since then, and sometimes she made some remarks about her father being a cheater, and it was very hard on both of us. It was something we tried to talk about, but it was just our words against her mother's, and she truly believed it. She returned home for a summer break after her freshman year in college. She decided to spend most of the time with her mother, but she does visit us a few times. She visited us 2 days ago, and she was in a remarkably bad mood. She was just stewing in silence and watching something on TV when I asked her to turn the volume down as I was working. She blew up on me. She called me a homewrecker and a gold digger. She accused me of ruining her parents' marriage. I was stunned and shocked, and it hurt me. I knew she didn't like me, but she clearly hated me. I think her calling me a gold digger hurt the most. I am at the stage of my career where I want to switch to something less stressful, but one of the reasons I don't is because we don't want her to be burdened by debt. I love this girl, even if she didn't care about me. I asked her to leave the house and come back when she could be a bit calmer. She left the house and she's not talking to her father. He tried to talk to her, but she is not speaking to him. I feel incredibly guilty. I should have handled it better. I got too emotional about it. I really can't blame her for believing what her mom told her. If my mom told me something similar about my dad, I would have believed it. I can't blame her mother too. If you believe that your spouse cheated, wouldn't you tell your children at some point? I let her words get to me, and I may hurt my husband's relationship with her. I feel guilty as hell. My husband also thinks that I should have been calmer here and just let her vent a bit before talking to her. Now for the top comments. No one else here except for her mom. That poor girl has been poisoned by her mother, but can you blame her? It's her mom telling her that stuff. You can't expect someone, who was 13 at the time of being told, to be a detective to find out if it was the truth. I bet her heart was broken because she loves her dad. But I also don't expect you to put up with it. You're innocent, even if the timeline is suspicious. You shouldn't have to put up with verbal mistreatment from anybody. Maybe you could have handled it better, but you could have handled it a lot worse too. The daughter is still the a-hole regardless of what she believes. She was in Opie's home, where she herself does not live, and disrespected her. If she is so adamant that her mother is telling the truth, then she should see her father outside of Opie's home, or alternatively at least be civil whilst in Opie's home and in Opie's company. No guest should ever disrespect the host in their own home.
If they hate the host so much, then they should leave. Yep. At some point, you have to acknowledge that she's an adult and is not even attempting to hear the other side. Her mom may have lit the fire, but daughter is keeping it fueled. Not Dayhal. She was incredibly rude to you in your own home. And she's an adult, not a hormonal teen anymore. Your husband should be firm with her, but is probably afraid of losing her altogether. Invite her back now that everyone is calm and show a united front. Tell her the facts of your relationship, that you pay her way, and that you love her. Also tell her that her rudeness won't be tolerated in your house. She might be unhappy, but she can't sit on your settee watching your TV and expect to treat you like dirt. I feel like this is really important for Opie to see. Right now, based upon what Opie wrote, it appears that the ex-wife has lied/slandered, the daughter bought it, and now Opie is stuck with living that lie. But that's not how it works. Just because someone else lies about you doesn't obligate you to maintain the lie or fall into line with the accusation. The accusation is a lie. You don't have to accept it. You can sit the daughter down and flatly deny the lie. In fact, you can call the lie a lie, and you can make it clear that when she's with you, you do not tolerate the lie. You are not a homewrecker and will not accept being treated like one. Repeating her mother's lie is not allowed in your home because it's a lie. This young woman is a victim of her mother's lies about you. The biomom is the main a-hole here. But those lies do not excuse stepdaughter's behavior towards you in your home. Yes, you could have handled it better, but we are human beings. We're imperfect. Tell her you are sorry for telling her to leave, but that you were upset because you did not have an affair with your husband while he was still with the biomom. You are not the a-hole. Forgive yourself too. Now for the next story. Would I be the a-hole if I changed my last name from my stepfather's back to my dad's? When I, 18 male, was 7, my dad died. My parents weren't together when he died. My mom met my stepfather when I was 9, married him when I was 11. He had a daughter and a nephew as raising, technically his ex's nephew. Neither of them had his last name, and so after the wedding, they decided he would adopt me and his nephew and all our names would be changed. I didn't want either and said so. They told me it was important for practical reasons, but also it would be nice to have a family name, and that I could see it as having my mom's name if that made it easier. It didn't. When it came time for everything to happen, I spoke out against it in court, and the judge decided to reject the adoption appeal for me, but allowed the name changed. So I ended up with a family name. I always knew I wanted to change it back, and a couple of months ago I moved out and started the process. I had the forms on my kitchen table when my grandparents stopped by. They saw them, told me I needed to tell my mom and stepfather what I'd planned, and that if I didn't, they would. They also told my stepfather's parents, and then I had 6 people tell me, after I told my mom and stepfather, it would be cruel to change my last name back after everything my stepfather had done for me. That considering my stepfather wanted to adopt me still and had asked again and still wanted to when I said no, showed he loved me and was a true dad. They said I could always add my dad's name back to it, but stepfathers should stay. I said no. My grandpa suggested moving my stepfather's name to the middle, but my middle name is my dad's first name, and I wanted to stay, and I don't want a second double name. So that is all out. I told them there are no compromises I would consider. They told me it would be rude to go ahead with it knowing how they feel. Would I be the a-hole if I changed my last name? They're a-holes. Change it back and don't budge on anything. That's your dad, and they had no right taking his name from you. You're not the a-hole. 100% agree. Opie lost his dad, which is incredibly traumatic. Removing dad's last name is like removing him from Opie's life for good. That last name is his only tie to his dad, and it was cruel AF for them to force change his last name. So go ahead, Opie, and change it back to your dad's name if that's what you want. You're old enough to make your own choices. Not a-hole. You're 18. You've known since you were 11 you wanted your birth dad's name. This should come as no shock to anyone who knows you. Change your name to make you happy. If others don't like it, they can lump it. Not a-hole. It's insane that they would force you to change your name when your father passed away. It's not like he was a deadbeat or some awful person. I honestly can't believe they forced you to do it when you've been adamantly against it since childhood. Being a step-parent isn't about getting kudos or being called a certain name or anything. I've been raising my stepson without his bio mom in the picture since he was a baby, and he still calls me by my first name and would never pressure him not to. Parenting is a selfless task, and kids shouldn't have to meet some requirements for it. If you want to change your name, then absolutely do it. If your stepdad has an issue with it, then he's a step-parent for the wrong reasons. I'm sorry your family put you through this. They're Rahals, not you. Not Dayhal. I second everything this very okay individual has said. As a stepfather, I can hardly imagine doing what your stepfather did to you 7 years ago. The extreme deficit of empathy it would require to force his name in place of your recently deceased father is mind-blowing. In my opinion, this is obvious emotional mistreatment. I am even further angered to read that a court allowed him to force his change on you. Opie, I can tell you from experience that there is no practical reason why this name change was important or necessary. My 2 stepsons have their father's last name, and over the years we've been a family. It has made zero practical difference at all. Not once ever. Next story. Am I the a-hole for saying my stepdad isn't a father figure? My stepdad's 45 male and my 17 male relationship was strained since my mom found him. He is more of a real man do this kind of guy. He was in the army, mandatory service, and now acts like a drill sergeant at times, when he was discharged 3 weeks into his service because he illegally got away. Some loophole in the law. And my bio-dad, 50 male, and my mom, 47 female, divorced 15 years ago for my dad's problems. After spending 20 plus years working 8 to 12 hours a day on his computer, he got back pain and had a lot of surgeries. He started working from home and became an alcoholic and had depression for almost a year, and my mom divorced him. Now my dad has been sober for 10 plus years and now works from home since he still has back problems. We are very close, and he ingrained to my head the dangers about alcohol and take care of your back before it gets very bad. My mom found my stepdad around 5 to 6 years ago, and in that time frame, I learned about his double standards and horrible views. My brother, 19 male, lives with us. My stepdad always treated us very differently. My brother got always listened to and respected, even when he stole and lied, while I get labeled a disrespectful brat when I try to correct my mom or my stepdad. My stepdad views men getting abused as being weak and says they deserve it. He also views having a health issue as being lazy. Not going to the army no matter what the reason was is because he is not a man. A day doesn't pass without him giving me crap for my dad's decisions and him not paying for his child support. Long story short, my mom wanted my dad to pay €1,000 each for my brother and me each month when he was making €300 a month. But outside this, he is a likable-ish guy. To a new person, he gives this chill and likable vibe. He laughs a lot and jokes a lot. When a convo is turning into an argument, he makes jokes to distract everyone from the argument. Yesterday, I went out for a job interview and came back with news that I got a job. By my math, I can move out in 6 months. When I told my mom and stepdad this, they were surprised. My mom was happy, but my stepdad waited 30 minutes and told me that I was a disrespectful brat for not staying longer. 6 months away I will hit 18 and he wants to charge me rent then. He said, "I have been your father for 6 years and you're just gonna leave me?" I responded with, "My dad lives behind the corner, not here." Then he went on for 5 minutes about disrespect and the entire mile. So I just went to my room and called a couple of my friends and ranted about the situation. Some said it was unreasonable, and some said I was in the wrong. So am I the a-hole? Note, I can go on about my stepdad's character for hours on end. He is a pissed off neighbor half of the time, and he is a likable guy other times. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your dad is present in your life and treats you with common courtesy and respect. Stepdad doesn't. Why would you look up to someone who treats you badly? Stepdad wants Opie to stay home so he can charge him rent. What? Keep that goal of moving out in 6 months. Don't let this a-hole man stop you. Not the a-hole at all. Not the a-hole. Your stepdad went completely out of line. He went on a rant about disrespect even though he was disrespecting you since you met him. Congrats on your job and good luck. Thanks. Not the a-hole. He's only looking at you as a source of money. Why does your mom put up with how he treats you? Or is she happy that you are escaping his BS? My mom has the same views as my dad. She doesn't really like his tantrums, but she usually goes the mile to justify his behavior. Last story is titled, "Am I the a-hole for making a derogative comment regarding my cousin's finances?" in response to her criticizing my moral character. Context: I'm 28 male, a commercial solicitor, and one of the clients my firm represents is a bank. Said bank is embroiled in a scandal involving the financing of a Southeast Asian operation accused of child slavery. The bank's alleged fault lies in their failure to properly vet the operation before financing it. Neither I nor my firm are representing the bank on that matter. Not that that distinction mattered to my cousin Camilla, 29 female. Camilla is a staunch human rights activist, and she has been vehemently critical of the bank. For the record, I'm unequivocally opposed to child slavery. Obviously. But this situation isn't that simple. Firstly, the accusations of child slavery is just that. Accusations. Secondly, should the accusations proved true, the bank is only culpable if their vetting process is proven to be substandard. This is because it's not reasonable, or even possible, to expect an institution's vetting process to be flawless. The conflict. And that's what I told Camilla when she asked for my opinion on the scandal at the dinner last night. She wasn't pleased with my response, and the discussion quickly devolved into her insulting me with labels such as child slaver by association. But after being accused of selling my soul for blood money for the 18th time, I snapped and retorted, "It's just a job, Camilla. Maybe if you had one, your parents wouldn't have to resort to asking for charity from family." Why I might be the a-hole. The pandemic cost both of Camilla's parents their jobs. The extended family pooled together a donation to help Camilla's family get back on their feet. I myself contributed $1,000 to this fund. But what was Camilla doing while her family struggled? She chose to study full-time while living at home at the ripe old age of 29. Admittedly, she does bartend part-time. Regardless, the topic is a sensitive one, and my bringing it up might have been overly harsh. Why I think my actions are justified. Firstly, Camilla's argument has no ground to stand on. Like I've stated before, neither my firm nor I are representing the bank on this matter. But even if I was, I have exactly zero influence over which clients and cases my firm takes on. And even if I did, everyone is entitled to a legal defense regardless of how egregious the accusations levied against them are. Secondly, how does Camilla have the gall to accuse me of trading my soul for blood money, while simultaneously being more than happy to accept that same blood money when it is convenient for her? Am I the a-hole? Everyone sucks here. To a degree, I think you both are. I don't think you are an a-hole for doing your job. Financial institutions have a tough role in terms of vetting customers, and as an independent party, it's certainly nothing to do with you. I think it wasn't fair of you to make a jab about her family, even though it sounds like there was truth in it. But she also needs to get off her high horse and live in the real world. I don't know if the jab was really an a-hole behavior. I mean, he contributed $1,000 to the fund for cousin's family, which is no small sum, only to have to listen to cousin's diatribe and name-slinging about how he earned said money. Not the a-hole. She chose to pick an argument at the family dinner. You gave her a chance to stop. When she didn't, you shut her down. Everyone sucks here. You both suck and said nasty things to each other. The blood money thing sounds like total BS. And anyway, that kind of dinner party activism is just nonsense. You want to be a staunch human rights activist? Then go do something constructive or disruptive or even arguably destructive. Not yell at your at most tangentially 6 degrees of separation removed from the problem cousin over dinner. But you suck too, Opie. Because you attacked her employment status and threw her family's poverty in her face. I would say she sucks more if it matters to you, because she did start it. I don't know. If you're begging for money and someone donates $1,000 to you, I should think there is an obligation to remain civil at least with that person. Especially since the person has no interest in you and wants to be left in peace. Would I be the a-hole for throwing out my in-laws and sister-in-law out of my house? I have been thinking about this all week, but my moral just keep battling with my head on this matter. I, 23 male, married my wife 24 female last year before the whole pandemic fiasco. I was lucky to not get affected by the pandemic and got the order of alternating between working at home for 1 week and coming to the office on the next one, which works fine by me. My sister-in-law, 34 female, and her husband, however, are not so lucky. Both of them got fired from their job because of cost cutting, which forced them to move in with my in-laws. Around June last year, I came home from work to find boxes and bags in the living room and saw my niece and nephews running around the house. My wife pulled me aside and told me that her family got evicted from their home and have nowhere else to go, so she invited them to come stay with us, without my permission. I was furious, but figured that it is not worth fighting over, especially when they are already here, so I let it slide. My wife promised that her sister and brother-in-law would try to find a job as soon as possible, move out with my in-laws, and reimburse me for the food or any other necessities that I provided for them. Months go by, and there's no sign of them even trying. My in-laws also look like they are in no hurry to find some way to move out or find somewhere else to stay. They treat my home like it is their own, since they begin putting away some old decoration on the excuse that it looks tacky, before putting up their own taste of decor. I'm starting to feel like they're just using me for my money, since I'm the one who paid for everything, including phone bills. I gave my wife an emergency card to be used, but she misused it for her family, so I took it back. Earlier this year, I confronted them about when they can move out, and they flipped out on me. My in-laws have the audacity to insult me by saying that my late grandparents literally hand me down everything I have now, and how I should not have any problem with them living with me for the foreseeable future. Just to be clear, the house belongs to my late grandparents, so it means so much to me. They literally put me as the sole inheritor to everything they own, including their savings and life insurances. I got angry and left the house. My wife has been texting me non-stop ever since, telling me to come back and apologize for trying to kick her family out of my house, and how selfish I was for putting money over family. I reminded her of her promise, and she hung up on me. My guilty conscience keeps telling me that I should just let them live there, since they are my wife's family and my in-laws are old now. But I am tired of having to deal with the stress from both my high-stress job and at home. So would I be the a-hole for throwing out my wife's family out of my house? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole, your wife is. Don't get me wrong, your in-laws are also, but your wife shoulders the majority of the blame for this situation. That's true. They might be thinking if she doesn't have a problem, then all is good. And what the heck is up with her husband since the house is a woman's domain? Some people think like that, and given they have her decorate, clearly they think if it's okay with her. That's exactly it. She invited them to move in without even discussing it with her partner. She is enabling them to take advantage of her partner by defending their terrible behavior. She is allowing them to treat her partner's family home like it is their own property. Yes, it is also her home, but it is his family's home too. Then treats her partner as if he is being irrational by not being okay with being taken advantage of. She is the a-hole. Not the a-hole. You won't get them to move out, and your wife has shown she will be on their side rather than yours. And you won't get them to move out as long as she's fighting for them. You will either win or lose this. And if you lose this, you lose everything. So kick them out. No dawdling. Get a lawyer, get an eviction notice, get them out. But do not move out yourself, because that can be seen as you abandoning the property, and they could claim squatters' rights. And their daughter might back them on it. The longer you let them stay, the harder it will be legally to make them leave. So start now and go hard. Squatters' rights I've never heard of, so it's probably the US only. We don't really know where Opie lives. We don't have such things here. I could legally report them to the police for trespassing, including my wife, but that would be too cruel, I think. Not the a-hole. When you get married, you create a new family that you prioritize over your existing family. But your wife is choosing to be a sister first and a wife second. Furthermore, she is expecting you to foot the bill for her family's shenanigans without your consent. You have to choose between being your wife's doormat or standing your ground. I would say kick them out as soon as possible and get a lawyer. Your wife's family is so entitled to your stuff, and your wife just does whatever they want. I wouldn't put it past them to entertain the possibility of getting half your possessions in a divorce, since they can't just live there for free anymore. We signed a prenup before marriage, thanks to my co-worker's suggestion, so she would get nothing from me unless we had a child together. Wonder if your co-worker smelled trouble in the horizon? Everyone tried to warn my Sib not to marry a particular person, but Sib thought it'd all be okay. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my wife help her sister? My male 31 wife, female 29, has a half-sister that I don't get along with for several reasons. For example, her sister ruined my wife's wedding dress 2 weeks before the wedding after she went to try it on without consent. She stole her car and hid it for days, hoping that she keeps it. She also lied to the family about me being inappropriate towards her. Her mom always backs her up and expects my wife, and now me, to take it. When we announced my wife's pregnancy, her sister lied and announced that she was pregnant, but it was awkward since everyone knew about her inability to have kids with her husband. She moved to our town and she started calling my wife to come help her move stuff into her new place. But the problem is that my wife is 7 months pregnant. She suffers from medical issues and needs to be careful. I told my wife to be careful. She said she had to help, and her sister calls to say she needs help with small boxes, but my wife ends up carrying heavy boxes and furniture. I offer her sister that she hire movers, but she said no need, just a few things, but she's been saying this for days. I offered to help out myself instead of my wife, but she argued with me, telling me to stop trying to control my wife. Yesterday, sister-in-law called her to invite my wife for tea. I went with her although her sister didn't want me. Once we sat down, she asked my wife if she could help her move boxes upstairs. The boxes were big. The staircase was long. I told my wife not to help. I didn't let her. It's not safe and something might go wrong. Her sister blew up at me, telling to stop controlling my wife and tell her what to do. I argued with her about how inconsiderate she was being of my wife and the baby. She just laughed it off, calling me overdramatic and that the baby will be fine. She insisted my wife help her, but I wanted us to leave. Her sister started calling me names while being nice to my wife. I took my wife home, and her stepmom called to berate me for what I said and did earlier. She told me to stay out of my wife's and her sister's relationship, and called me an abusive jerk for trying to stop my wife from helping out her sister. Her dad agreed and told my wife she needed to stop letting me dictate her interactions with family. My wife defended me, but still didn't see anything wrong in her sister's behavior. In fact, she felt guilty for not helping. I refused to apologize after they pressured me. Not day haul. I recommend r/just no mother-in-law or similar subs, as they can sometimes have good tips for helping spouses recognize that they're being treated like absolute crap. You need to have a very serious but empathetic. She's lived her whole life like this. It's gonna take more than one convo. Series of conversations that explain how inconsiderate and borderline, if not outright, abusive her family is being to her. Then, you guys really need to go no contact. It's not safe for your wife and child now, and it won't be in the future. Remember to support her as best as you can. I hope things work out well for you and your wife, Opie. Best of luck. Not day haul. You weren't raised in this mess, so you can see clearly. Your wife, though, not so much. When you grew up with crazy, you don't really understand what everyone else see until you remove yourself from it. Not day haul. Am I the only one thinking the psycho half-sister is trying to force a miscarriage? You're not alone. Seriously, I thought the exact same thing. I thought that too. Scary. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my stepson he can't stay in my house? My stepson, aged 24, is getting kicked out of his apartment because he doesn't want to pay rent anymore. His roommate found another tenant and asked him to leave. He asked if he could move in with me and his mom, and I said no. Some background. He's a 24-year college graduate who works part-time when he decides to work. I helped pay for his expenses while he attended college, and I feel like with him being 24, it's time to man up and at least attempt to provide for yourself. Me not allowing him to live in my home means he would have to move from Miami to Illinois to live with his dad. He insists that he doesn't want to move, but he also refuses to get a job. Me and his mother try to explain that you have to work in order to get what you want. We've sent him job postings and I wrote his resume. I even added a little fluff to the resume to help him get interviews. He would get interviews, in some cases make it to drug testing, but would forget to take his test. So needless to say, I'm done trying. Or so I thought. Fast forward to this week. He calls with his sob story about getting kicked out for non-payment. I tell him he can't stay in my house because he refuses to work. I can't imagine working 10 to 12 hours a day, while a healthy college-educated man sleeps till 1 p.m. and parties all night on my dime. So, because I care about him, I offered to buy him a plane ticket back to Illinois. He refused because he doesn't want to leave his car. According to him, he's put too much money in the car and he doesn't want to leave his belongings. Okay, I offered to rent him a U-Haul truck with a trailer as a one-way rental. He refused, saying he doesn't want to drive. According to him, the only option is to live with us. At this point, I'm done. So I flat out say no and get back to Illinois the best you can. Am I the a-hole? By the way, his mother says she agrees with me, but I can tell she wants to let him stay. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. I was thinking it would go another way. But no, totally not the a-hole. I hope your wife backs you. If she wants to let him stay, she might be open to manipulation by him. That's the mom in us. Biology won't allow us to let our offspring starve and fail, even if it's because this bird is too lazy to go get the worm. I understand the sentiment perfectly, but I'm gonna push mine to fly away regardless. It's the only way they learn how to fly. I like the empty nest. There's less crap on the floor. If he moved in with you, you'll have to get eviction papers and police to drag him out. You know it. Even his mother knows it. You gave him options, and he rejected them all. One last thing, a final offer, a gas card with enough money on it to drive his car to Illinois. Not the a-hole. I think once he's sleeping in his precious car and eating at the local soup kitchen, he'll get the message that no one but himself is going to help him. But the moment they let him in, he's going to be like a barnacle. Not the a-hole. Once he's in, he's there for good. You've offered him all the help he needs to rectify his homeless situation. Does mom perchance give him money that dad wouldn't? Yes, she spoils him. His dad already said he's got 30 days to get a job if he comes. And there it is. Of course, he wants to stay where he can mooch off mom. Mom agrees with you that he should live with dad, but she's the very reason he doesn't want to. Of course, it might be fraught with danger telling her this. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my parents to ask for permission when coming to my house? A little context. I, 22 female, just graduated from uni and had to move back home with my parents because of the pandemic. Our house has 2 stories. The ground level is getting remodeled, so my parents can move downstairs and I get to live upstairs alone. Now, the entire property legally is under my name. That was my biological mother's decision. She died of cancer when I was 1 and my dad remarried when I was 3. To go to me instead of my 2 older brothers who are now all moved out and have their own separate lives. When I moved back home, I asked my parents for some financial help with bills and utilities because I was unable to find a job that would pay enough to support all expenses. They told me they would support me for 2 years until the other house is done being built and until I find a good enough job. Now, yesterday, I found out that once my parents move out from my house upstairs to move to their house downstairs, they intend to keep coming in and out of my house as they please, even when I'm not at home. I mean, full-on unlock the door, barge in uninvited, take what they want whenever they want without asking for my permission, or letting me know they took something. I told them that they aren't allowed to do that, and that they should inform me if they will be coming over, or if they want to get something from my house when I'm not at home. My mom, my stepmom, then got incredibly angry. Kept saying that I'm being ungrateful and I'm overstepping my boundaries, and that since they help me financially, they have every right to do that. I keep insisting that I am not being ungrateful and that this is a matter of respect and boundaries. I don't intend on coming to their house without permission, and neither should they. My mom has a bad habit of constantly going through my stuff, even my phone before I put a password on, and coming into my room without knocking. She can be very controlling, and this is exactly what I feared would happen if I decided to move back home to my home country, which I had to do because of the pandemic. I told her that if they intend to do that, then I will change the locks to the house doors. She got very upset and said that I'm being disrespectful, that she's hurt, and that she will stop supporting me. She also said that it's up to my dad now to choose what to do about this. So, am I the a-hole for threatening to change the locks and prohibiting them from coming to my house even though they help me financially? Not the a-hole. Your mom is forcing this situation but not respecting your boundaries. She needs to understand that relationships with adult children are not the same as relationships with young ones. Good luck. Thank you. You were right about the relationships part. It can be hard sometimes to accept that, I guess. Not Dayhole. If your name is on the title, tell her if she removes financial contributions, you'll evict them. That should shut her up. Thank you for the reply. I don't think I'd like to be that harsh, to be honest, as they're still my parents, and I would hate myself if I did something like that. But I'm considering renting out my portion of the space and moving out to a smaller flat. You need to be prepared to do this. Is there a rental agreement in place, or are they just going to be living rent-free? I know they are your parents, but you should seriously consider drafting up some legal agreement so everyone is clear on expectations and what happens should you decide to move, etc. I mean, what's going to happen if you marry and have children? Will your place be big enough? If you want to move and sell this place and there's no rental/agreement in place, things are going to get very messy. I honestly did not even consider all of that. Usually, we just fight our way through conversations like that. But genuinely, this has been one of the most enlightening comments till now, so thanks for bringing this to my attention. I didn't even consider drafting a legal document like that, but I think it might be of real help. Thank you.